Hi there, my name is Will Ruby and I'm the minister of St Martin's Church in Heaton, Norris in Stockport. In September 2018, I and a group of others were involved with a church revitalisation here at St Martin's. The previous year, St Martin's had realised that it was no longer sustainable as a church in terms of the numbers of people who were coming and the finances. So under the overall leadership of Bishop Mark Ashcroft, and helped and guided by Reverend Helen Scanlon, who was the incumbent at the time, the diocese decided to embark on this revitalisation. A group of just under 40 adults came under my leadership from Holy Trinity Platt Church in Rusholme, nearer the centre of Manchester, and joined the existing congregation at St Martin's. It wasn't a kind of a new start altogether. It was more like a new chapter in an ongoing story in the long history of the life of St Martin's. Now, the reason that relates to what we're talking about today at More Than Sunday is that right from the off, from week one, we decided that a central part of the culture of St Martin's would be midweek small groups. So at week one, we encouraged everyone who was part of the congregation at St Martin's and who was able to be part and to join our midweek small groups. We called them Hub Central to recognise that this was the hub, the central part of our life together. I just want to briefly explain what we did and also why we did it. So what we did, every Wednesday evening from about 7 o'clock, I think it was, we gathered together centrally in the church building. So it wasn't in different people's homes, it was one group centrally. We had a hot meal together every week. Then every week a lady called Marilyn had baked some incredible cakes, so we had coffee and cake. After that there was a slot for 5 minutes or so, which could have been a testimony or a story or some notices. Or maybe in the future we might do things like the This Time Tomorrow that we thought about at the last learning hub. So a slot, and then after that we split off into groups for the rest of the evening. People were in the same groups all year round. The groups had a couple of leaders with them. And in those groups, we went through a passage of the Bible as a Bible study together, and then had a chance to pray for each other as well. In fact, here on the screen, you can see a picture of a group there. That's Kate leading some kind of discussion and Bible study in the group, and you can see that it's there in the building. So why did we do this? Why did we see Hub Central as such an important and central part of our culture at St Martin's? I think there were lots of reasons probably, but here are four that spring to mind immediately. The first is that Hub Central was a place of community. It was a place of support. It was a place where relationships could develop and grow outside of Sundays. It was a place where people could pray for each other in a slightly less rushed way. It was a place where we could share stories. Even in this picture there that you see on your screen, there's one funeral director, two people work for the NHS, two teachers, people living in jobs that are high pressured, and the need to support one another in our faith, but also just in our day-to-day lives. It was a place of community and support. It was also a place of connection with a few people to build deep relationships, but also connection to the wider vision of what goes on at St Martin's. That's why we ate together every week, so that we could build connections and eat together, have those notices slots. Sometimes before we went into small groups, we'd spend 5 minutes or so praying for an upcoming outreach event. And we as a whole church were praying together for that, connected together. It was also linked with that, a community in terms of our vision. Regularly, about once a term or so, I would give a vision talk outlining our hopes and our dreams for where we want to go as a church. So Hub Central was a place of community. It was also a place of discipleship. It was not just a chance for us to catch up and chat, although there was certainly plenty of that. But it was a place where we could encourage one another and spur each other on and disciple one another. The Bible verse that, if you like, was kind of written large over all that we do was where the Apostle Paul says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly as you teach and admonish one another." At St Martin's, we want Christ to lead his body, the church, and we believe he does that as his word dwells richly amongst us. And that's not just from me, the overall Bible teacher or minister. No, all of us have a responsibility to teach and at times to admonish one another. And our small groups, our discipleship groups, a place where that mutual teaching can happen, where all of us, different ages, can teach and admonish one another. Here you see it in the picture again, just that picture of men and women gathering around the Bible, gathering around the scriptures to teach one another. And it's worth saying that that teaching and equipping is not just for our church life, it's for all of our life. Equipping one another to live for Christ in the workplace, in our families, in homeschooling, as many people now are finding themselves in. Now, the way we do it is we work through different books of the Bible, just passage by passage. So we've looked at Colossians and Haggai and Jonah, Titus, a section of Mark 8 to 10 in the run-up to Easter last year. Currently, even this evening, in fact, we're looking at Luke chapter 12 and Jesus' teaching on following him and discipleship there. As well as the Bible studies, from time to time, I would lead the church in seminars or talks on various aspects of the Christian life or ethics or discipleship. I think we've thought together about different patterns of praying, of how we lament and praise, of how to live for Jesus and how to speak for him as well. So it's a place of community. Secondly, it's a place of discipleship. Thirdly, and importantly, it's a place on Hub Central which is a newcomer's pathway. We all recognise, I think, that it can be really hard to join a new church if you come along. And Hub Central is a place that helps newcomers, whether they're new to the faith or just new to the church, to join and to become integrated and incorporated into the wider church family. There was a retired couple who joined us about a month before the end of lockdown. And Hub Central has been an important way for them to build relationships and to get to know others and to join in. Periodically, we run these things called taster groups. And a taster group is just a 2-week taster of what goes on at Hub. We do a couple of weeks of short Bible studies. There's no commitment to come back in the future. It just gives people a taste of it. Sometimes people have done those tasters and it's not been for them, and that's absolutely fine. Other times people have joined a taster group and the taster group has itself become a hub group. My wife is currently leading one of a hub group that was a taster group. And I said to her that I'd like to think that we should lead a group together. I'd love to do that. But she loves her group so much that for the moment we're leading separate groups. In due course, in time, I'd also like to be able to run seeker groups on a Wednesday night, all together, eating together, and then studying the scriptures together in our different groups. So it's a place of community, of discipleship, newcomer pathway. But finally, Hub Central, the reason it's such a central part of our culture is that it's a place where we can train leaders. My experience is whatever size church you're at, whether smaller or larger, we all long for more men and women to be involved in leadership in some way. And how does that happen? Well, one of the ways that we're trying to develop leaders is through Hub Central. Every group has 2 or 3 set leaders, and often one of those leaders would be a leader who hasn't led before, and it's a chance for them to gradually learn and develop as a leader. One of our distinctives, I suppose, is that everyone who's involved in leadership is also asked to be part of a separate group. The leaders meet together probably once every other week or so, and together we study and talk about the Bible passage that we're then going to go on to teach. So that we can help one another grow in our understanding. I see it as one of my roles as church leader, which I take very seriously, of developing and training men and women to be equipped for the task of leadership. And I could tell you lots of stories about exciting individuals there. So that's a bit about why Hub Central is such a central part of our life here at St Martin's. It's a place of community, discipleship. It gives a pathway for newcomers and also a way to develop leaders. Now, of course, due to COVID, much has changed. Nearly all of it has gone online and we're able to continue in a different way. Of course, we don't eat together, but in a sense, the principles still remain the same. Now, I know that all the churches that we represent are very different and have very different cultures, and much of what I've said might not fit in your culture and your context. But I hope that some of those principles that I've talked about might give you some ideas that you might want to think about and see how they apply for you.